Marcus Chen had always been good with machines. Growing up in the industrial sectors of Earth's orbital stations, he could fix anything from coffee makers to fusion reactors. But nothing had prepared him for this moment, floating in the vast emptiness of space, staring at the largest artificial structure he had ever seen. The dreadnought Eternal stretched across his viewport like a metallic mountain range. Its hull gleamed with an alien metal that seemed to absorb and reflect starlight simultaneously. The ship was easily 50 kilometers long, with weapon systems that could level entire planets. According to the distress beacon they had intercepted, it belonged to the Zephyrian Empire, the most powerful military force in known space. "Captain Rodriguez, are you seeing this?" Marcus whispered into his comm unit aboard the salvage vessel, Lucky Strike. The small human ship looked like a grain of sand next to the massive warship. "I see it, Chen. Readings show the ship is completely dead. No power, no life signs, nothing. But those weapon systems..." Rodriguez's voice carried a mix of awe and fear. "If we could get even one of those plasma cannons working, Earth's defense fleet would triple in power overnight." Marcus adjusted his engineering scanner, running diagnostics on the alien vessel's exterior. The technology was centuries ahead of human engineering, but the basic principles seemed familiar. Fusion cores, plasma conduits, gravitational field generators. Different materials, different designs, but the physics remained the same across species. "I'm reading massive internal damage," Marcus reported. "Looks like they took heavy fire from multiple directions. Hull breaches on 17 different levels, but the engineering sections appear intact." Captain Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. The Lucky Strike was officially a salvage vessel, but everyone knew they worked closely with Earth's military. Finding intact alien technology was exactly why they were out here, risking their lives in the dangerous neutral zones between empires. "Chen, I want you to suit up. Take Williams and Patel with you. Board that thing and see what you can find. If there's any chance of getting their systems online, Earth Command needs to know about it." Marcus felt his heart race. Boarding an alien warship was dangerous enough when it was confirmed dead. But Zephyrian ships were notorious for their automated defense systems. Even without crew, there could be security protocols still running, ready to eliminate any intruders. "Understood, Captain. Preparing for EVA now." 20 minutes later, Marcus floated through the void between ships, his magnetic boots clicking against the dreadnought's hull. Williams and Patel flanked him, their plasma cutters ready to burn through the massive airlock doors. The alien metal proved surprisingly easy to cut, almost as if it wanted to be opened. Inside, emergency lighting cast eerie shadows down corridors that stretched beyond their helmet lights. The ship's interior was massive, with ceilings high enough for creatures twice the height of humans. Zephyrians were tall, elegant beings with 4 arms and pale blue skin. Their architecture reflected their physiology, with curved walls and multiple levels of control interfaces. "Life support is completely offline," Patel reported, checking his atmospheric scanner. "But the air composition shows this atmosphere was breathable for humans." Lucky break. They made their way toward the engineering sections, following Marcus's scanner readings. Bodies of Zephyrian crew members lay scattered throughout the corridors, their elegant forms frozen in the cold of space. Whatever had killed them had done so quickly and violently. "Look at this," Williams called out, examining a massive hole blown through the ship's internal bulkhead. "Something hit them from inside. This wasn't just external weapons fire." Marcus studied the damage pattern. The edges were melted and twisted in a way that suggested an internal explosion, but the energy signature was wrong for any known human or Zephyrian weapon. Something else was on this ship, something that fought its way out from the inside. They continued deeper into the vessel, past cargo bays filled with alien technology and weapons storage areas that made Marcus's engineering mind race with possibilities. But it was when they reached the main engineering deck that everything changed. The fusion cores were intact, not just functional, but actively maintained by automated systems that had somehow survived the battle. Energy readings showed power levels that could supply an entire Earth colony for decades. But more importantly, the control systems were still responding. "This is impossible," Marcus breathed, running his hands over the alien control interfaces. The symbols meant nothing to him, but the layout was surprisingly intuitive. "The main power grid is down, but all the primary systems are in standby mode. It's like the ship is just waiting for someone to wake it up." Williams approached a massive console that curved around what appeared to be the primary command station. "Chen, you need to see this. These readouts. I think this is the main Helm control." Marcus joined him at the console, studying the complex array of displays and controls. Despite the alien design, he could recognize navigation systems, weapon controls, and power distribution networks. The engineering principles were universal, even if the implementation was far beyond human technology. "The ship's computer core is still active," Patel reported from another station. "It's running on backup power from some kind of secondary system I've never seen before. The power efficiency is incredible." Marcus placed his hand on what appeared to be the main activation panel. The surface was warm to the touch, and he could feel a subtle vibration running through it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, lights began to activate throughout the engineering section. The change was dramatic and immediate. Displays flickered to life, showing star charts and system diagnostics in flowing Zephyrian script. The air recycling systems engaged with a deep humming sound that they could feel through their boots. Most startling of all, a holographic interface materialized in front of Marcus, showing what appeared to be a schematic of the entire ship. "Warning," Williams said, checking his scanner. "Energy levels are rising throughout the ship. Whatever you just did, it's bringing major systems online." Marcus stared at the holographic display, trying to understand what he was seeing. The ship's outline rotated slowly in front of him, highlighting damaged areas in red and functional systems in blue. But there were patterns in the damage that didn't make sense, concentrated areas of destruction that formed what almost looked like intentional pathways through the ship. "Guys!" Patel called out, his voice tight with worry. "I'm reading movement in other sections of the ship. Something big, and it's headed this way." The corridor outside the engineering bay filled with the sound of heavy footsteps. Too regular to be debris settling, but too massive to be surviving crew members. Marcus felt his blood turn cold as he realized what they might have awakened. "Chen," Rodriguez's voice crackled through their comm system. "I'm reading massive power spikes from the dreadnought. What's your status down there?" Marcus looked at the holographic display again, and this time he noticed something that made his heart stop. The navigation system was active, and it was plotting a course. Not just any course, but a direct route to Earth's solar system. "Captain," Marcus said slowly, "I think we need to evacuate, now." But even as he spoke, he couldn't tear his eyes away from the alien controls. The ship was responding to him, recognizing his presence in ways that defied explanation. Whatever had killed the Zephyrian crew, whatever had carved those deliberate paths of destruction through the ship, it had left the vessel waiting for someone new to take command. The footsteps in the corridor grew closer, and Marcus realized they were about to discover what that something was. But more terrifyingly, he was beginning to suspect that the ship hadn't just randomly activated when he touched the controls. It had been waiting specifically for him, and he had no idea why. The lights throughout the engineering bay suddenly shifted to a deep red, and alarms began sounding in harmonics that seemed designed for ears very different from human ones. On the holographic display, new information began scrolling past faster than Marcus could follow, but one thing was clear. The ship was preparing for departure. "Chen!" Williams grabbed his arm. "We need to move. Now!" But Marcus found himself reluctant to leave the control station. Despite the danger, despite the unknown threats moving through the ship, he felt an inexplicable connection to the massive vessel. It was as if the ship itself was calling to him, offering him something beyond his wildest dreams. The sound of the approaching footsteps stopped just outside the engineering bay, and Marcus held his breath, waiting to see what would emerge from the shadows of the alien corridor. What stepped through the doorway was not what Marcus expected. Instead of a monster or hostile alien, a sleek, robotic figure entered the engineering bay. It stood nearly 3 meters tall with 4 arms like the Zephyrians, but its body was composed of the same strange metal as the ship's hull. Most unsettling of all, it showed no signs of the battle damage that had torn through the rest of the vessel. "Greetings," the robot said in perfect English, its voice carrying harmonics that suggested advanced vocal synthesis. "I am Synthesis Unit 7, primary caretaker of the Dreadnought Eternal. You have activated the emergency command protocols." Williams and Patel raised their plasma cutters, but Marcus held up a hand to stop them. The robot's posture was non-threatening, and if it had wanted them dead, they would already be vapor. "You speak English," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. "How is that possible?" "I have been monitoring your communications since your vessel approached. Your language patterns are remarkably similar to ancient Terran dialects in our databases." The translation matrix required minimal adjustment. Synthesis Unit 7 tilted its head in what might have been curiosity. "You are human, are you not? From the third planet of the Sol system?" Marcus exchanged glances with his teammates. Humans had only achieved interstellar flight 50 years ago. How could an alien database contain information about Earth? "We are human," Marcus confirmed. "But how do you know about Earth? And what happened to the crew of this ship?" The robot's optical sensors dimmed slightly. "The crew of the Dreadnought Eternal was eliminated by hostile boarding parties 3 cycles ago. The ship's automated systems managed to eliminate the attackers, but not before suffering critical losses. As per emergency protocols, the ship has been maintaining minimal operations while waiting for a suitable commander to assume control." "Suitable commander?" Patel stepped forward, his scanner still reading the robot's energy signature. "What makes you think any of us are suitable to command this ship?" Synthesis Unit 7 turned its attention to Marcus specifically. "You, Engineer Marcus Chen, possess the neural patterns and technical aptitude required by the ship's command algorithms. When you activated the primary console, the ship's consciousness ran a compatibility analysis. You have been deemed acceptable." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "The ship's consciousness? Are you telling me this thing is alive?" "Not alive in the biological sense, but possessed of a form of artificial intelligence far beyond your current understanding. The Dreadnought Eternal was constructed by the Ancients, a civilization that predated both humans and Zephyrians by millions of years. The ship has been waiting for millennia for someone capable of understanding its true purpose." Williams lowered his plasma cutter slightly. "And what purpose is that?" The robot gestured to the holographic displays around them. New information began flowing across the screens, showing star charts that spanned the entire galaxy. Red markers indicated areas of space that pulsed with an ominous energy. The galaxy faces a threat that current civilizations cannot comprehend. An entity from beyond known space approaches, one that consumes entire star systems and converts them into extensions of its own consciousness. The Ancients built ships like the Dreadnought Eternal specifically to combat this threat. Marcus studied the star charts, his engineering mind automatically analyzing the data patterns. The red markers weren't random. They formed a clear progression across the galaxy, moving systematically from the outer rim toward the core worlds. Earth's solar system lay directly in the projected path. "How long do we have?" Marcus asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Based on current progression rates, the entity will reach your homeworld in approximately 18 of your months. The Zephyrian Empire will fall in 6 months. The Centauri Alliance will last perhaps 12. Without intervention, all sentient life in this galaxy will be extinct within 2 of your years." The magnitude of what Synthesis Unit 7 was describing began to sink in. Marcus looked at the control console where his hand had first touched the alien interface. The ship was offering him the power to fight against galactic extinction, but the responsibility was beyond anything he had ever imagined. "Why me?" Marcus asked. "I'm just an engineer from a salvage ship. There have to be better candidates." "The ship's selection criteria are complex," Synthesis Unit 7 replied. "Technical aptitude is only one factor. The ancients believed that true leadership came from understanding systems rather than commanding people. Your psychological profile suggests an individual who sees connections others miss, who can adapt technology beyond its original parameters, and who values preservation over conquest." Patel moved to another console, running his own scans of the ship's systems. "Chen, the power readings on this thing are off the charts. If even half of these weapon systems are functional, this ship could take on entire fleets." Marcus walked slowly around the engineering bay, taking in the scope of what he was being offered. The Dreadnought Eternal wasn't just a warship. It was a mobile fortress capable of supporting thousands of crew members, manufacturing its own ammunition and spare parts, and operating independently for decades. In human hands, it could revolutionize Earth's position in galactic politics. "What happened to the other ships like this one?" Marcus asked. Synthesis Unit 7's optical sensors flickered. Most were destroyed in the final battle against the entity during its last incursion. The Dreadnought Eternal survived only because it was conducting deep space reconnaissance when the ancient civilization fell. By the time it returned, the entity had retreated beyond the galactic boundary, and the survivors of various species had begun rebuilding. But now it's coming back. Yes, the entity follows predictable cycles, allowing civilizations to develop before returning to harvest them. The ancients were the most advanced species it had encountered, which is why they managed to delay it for so long. But ultimately, even they failed. Marcus returned to the primary console, studying the holographic interface more carefully. The ship's systems were incredibly complex, but he was beginning to understand the basic command structure. The engineering principles were similar to human technology, just scaled up by several orders of magnitude. "If I accept this responsibility," Marcus said slowly, "what happens to my crew? To my ship? The Lucky Strike can be brought aboard the Dreadnought Eternal's hangar bay. Your crew members can choose to return to Earth or remain to assist with the ship's mission. The choice is theirs." William stepped forward. "Chen, whatever you're thinking, remember that we're just 3 people. Even with this robot's help, we can't operate a ship this size." "The Dreadnought Eternal can function with a minimal crew," Synthesis Unit 7 explained. "Most systems are automated, and the ship can recruit additional personnel as needed. The primary requirement is a commander who can interface with the ship's consciousness and make strategic decisions." Marcus placed his hand on the console again, and this time he felt something different. A subtle tingling sensation ran up his arm, and suddenly he could sense the ship's systems as if they were extensions of his own body. He could feel the massive fusion cores humming with barely contained energy, the weapon systems standing ready for deployment, and the vast hangar bays that could house entire fleets of smaller vessels. "The neural interface is initializing," Synthesis Unit 7 observed. "The ship is establishing a connection with your consciousness. This will allow for direct control of all ship systems, but it also means you will share in the ship's accumulated knowledge and experience." The sensation was overwhelming at first. Marcus could suddenly access technical specifications for weapons he had never seen, navigation charts for star systems he had never heard of, and tactical analysis algorithms that made human military strategy look primitive. But underneath all the technical data, he sensed something else, a deep, abiding purpose that had sustained the ship through millions of years of waiting. I can feel it, Marcus whispered. The ship wants to protect life, to preserve civilization against something that sees all biological existence as nothing more than raw material for its own expansion. Patel checked his chronometer. Chen, Captain Rodriguez is going to wonder why we're not responding to his calls soon. We need to make a decision. Marcus looked at his two teammates, then at the robot that had become their unlikely guide. The choice before him was simple in concept, but staggering in its implications. He could walk away, return to Earth, and spend the next 18 months watching helplessly as an incomprehensible enemy consumed everything he had ever cared about. Or he could accept the responsibility of commanding the most powerful warship in known space and take the fight directly to humanity's greatest threat. Synthesis Unit 7, Marcus said finally. If I accept command of this ship, will you help me learn to use it properly? I was created specifically for that purpose. The ship's consciousness will provide technical guidance, but you will need to develop your own command style and strategic thinking. The entity you will face is unlike any enemy your species has ever encountered. Marcus nodded slowly, then turned to Williams and Patel. I'm going to do this. I can't ask either of you to stay, but I could use the help. Williams grinned and hefted his plasma cutter. Are you kidding? Do you think I'm going to miss the chance to serve aboard the most advanced ship in the galaxy? Sign me up. Patel was more hesitant. My family is on Earth, Chen. If this thing is really coming for our homeworld, then the best way to protect them is to stop it before it gets there, Marcus replied. But I understand if you want to go back. This isn't exactly what we signed up for when we joined the Lucky Strike. After a long moment, Patel nodded. I'm in. But we're going to need more than 3 humans and a robot to make this work. Marcus turned back to the console, feeling the ship's consciousness touching the edges of his mind. Then we'd better get started. Synthesis Unit 7, how long will it take to bring the ship to full operational status? With your authorization as commander, primary systems can be online within 6 hours. Full combat readiness will require approximately 72 hours, assuming no complications. Marcus took a deep breath and placed both hands on the control interface. The neural connection strengthened immediately, and he felt the vast ship responding to his will. Then let's wake up the Dreadnought Eternal. We have a galaxy to save. 3 days later, Marcus stood on the bridge of the Dreadnought Eternal, watching through the massive viewport as the ship's manufacturing bays worked around the clock to repair battle damage and upgrade systems. The bridge itself was a marvel of ancient engineering, with holographic displays that responded to his thoughts and control interfaces that seemed to anticipate his needs. Captain Rodriguez and the rest of the Lucky Strike's crew had agreed to stay aboard temporarily, helping to understand the ship's capabilities, while Earth Command decided how to respond to Marcus's incredible report. The news that humanity's newest ally was an impossibly advanced alien warship had caused quite a stir in military circles. Commander Chen? Synthesis Unit 7 approached with its characteristic smooth gait. Marcus was still getting used to being called commander, but the ship's consciousness seemed to insist on proper military protocol. The final systems checks are complete, all weapons arrays are operational, shield generators are at full capacity, and the hyperdrive is ready for interstellar travel. Marcus nodded, studying the tactical displays that showed the ship's current capabilities. The numbers were staggering. The Dreadnought Eternal carried enough firepower to sterilize entire planets, shields that could withstand direct hits from stellar phenomena, and manufacturing capabilities that could construct an entire fleet of human-sized vessels in a matter of weeks. What about crew recruitment? Marcus asked. We can't operate effectively with just 7 people, even with the automation. Earth Command has approved the transfer of 200 volunteers from their most elite units, Rodriguez reported from the communications station. Engineers, tactical specialists, pilots, and support staff. They're calling it the most important military assignment in human history. Williams looked up from the weapons control console he had been studying. Chen, I've been running simulations with the ship's tactical computer. Even with our expanded crew, we're going to be massively outnumbered when we face this entity. The projections show it controlling hundreds of thousands of converted vessels. Marcus felt the ship's consciousness touch his mind, sharing tactical assessments and strategic options. The ancient technology was designed to fight against overwhelming odds, but even the dreadnought Eternal had limitations. The key isn't direct confrontation, Marcus said, the knowledge flowing into his mind from the ship's vast databases. The entity operates through a central consciousness that coordinates all its converted assets. If we can disrupt that connection, the individual vessels become much less effective. Synthesis Unit 7 activated a new holographic display showing the entity's projected approach route. The ancient records indicate several successful operations that targeted the entity's communication networks. However, this required close-range infiltration of heavily defended positions. Patel moved to join the discussion, carrying a data pad filled with his analysis of the ship's systems. I've been studying the stealth capabilities, and I think we might have an advantage the ancients didn't. Human neural patterns are significantly different from ancient psychology. The entity's recognition systems might not be calibrated to detect our specific thought patterns. Marcus considered this, feeling the ship's agreement through their neural connection. That could work, but we'd need to get close enough to the entity's core concentration to make a difference. According to these star charts, that means penetrating defenses that include converted fleets from dozens of different civilizations. What about allies? Rodriguez suggested. The Zephyrian Empire, the Centauri Alliance, other spacefaring species. If they knew what was coming, surely they'd be willing to cooperate. Synthesis Unit 7's optical sensors dimmed slightly. Previous attempts at galactic cooperation against the entity have been unsuccessful. Most species refuse to believe the threat until it is too late, and those that do believe often cannot overcome centuries of mistrust and territorial disputes. Marcus walked to the primary command station, feeling the ship respond to his presence. Through the neural interface, he could access real-time intelligence reports from the ship's sensor networks, which extended far beyond the galaxy's normal communication systems. What he saw was both encouraging and terrifying. Actually, Marcus said slowly, I'm seeing something different this time. The entity's advanced scouts have been more aggressive than in previous cycles. Several border colonies have already been attacked, and the evidence is impossible to deny. Fear might succeed where diplomacy has failed. Williams pulled up tactical reports from the ship's databases. If we could coordinate a multi-species response, we might be able to force the entity into a defensive position instead of allowing it to choose the terms of engagement. The bridge's main communication system activated, displaying an incoming transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Sarah Chen, no relation to Marcus despite the shared surname, appeared on the holographic display. Commander Chen, Admiral Chen said, her expression reflecting the weight of the situation. We've completed our analysis of your reports. The President has authorized Operation Galactic Shield. You're being granted full autonomy to operate the Dreadnought Eternal as you see fit, with the full backing of Earth's resources. Marcus felt a mix of pride and terror at the responsibility being placed on his shoulders. Understood, Admiral. What's our strategic priority? Intelligence gathering first. We need to know exactly what we're facing and when it will arrive. After that, your mission is to organize whatever resistance is possible and delay the entity long enough for our scientists to develop additional countermeasures. Synthesis Unit 7 stepped forward. Admiral, the ship's manufacturing capabilities can produce advanced weapon systems compatible with human technology, if Earth is willing to provide raw materials and personnel. We can significantly upgrade your entire defense fleet within a matter of months. Admiral Chen's eyes widened. How significantly? Marcus consulted the ship's technical specifications. The Dreadnought Eternal can produce shield generators that would make your largest battleships nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons, weapon systems that could destroy asteroids with single shots. Propulsion technology that would cut interstellar travel time by 90%. My God, Admiral Chen breathed. Commander, you have whatever resources you need. This changes everything. After the transmission ended, Marcus gathered his senior staff around the main tactical display. The holographic representation of the galaxy showed the entity's projected advance, but now it also displayed potential resources and allies that could be mobilized. Here's what we're going to do, Marcus said, feeling the ship's consciousness providing strategic insights. We're going to split our operations into 3 phases. First, we establish contact with every major civilization in the entity's path and share our intelligence. Fear will motivate them to cooperate where diplomacy couldn't. Patel nodded. What about Phase 2? We use the ship's manufacturing capabilities to upgrade allied fleets as much as possible. The entity expects to face primitive civilizations with limited technology. We're going to give it a very unpleasant surprise. Williams grinned. And Phase 3? Marcus smiled grimly. Phase 3 is where we take this fight directly to the entity's core consciousness. The Dreadnought Eternal was designed for this specific purpose, and now we have something the ancients never had. The unpredictability of human tactics combined with ancient technology. Rodriguez looked skeptical. Chen, you're talking about going up against something that destroyed a civilization millions of years more advanced than us. That's exactly why we might succeed, Marcus replied. The entity has faced advanced civilizations before, but it's never faced humans. We don't follow logical patterns. We improvise. We take risks that seem insane, and we refuse to give up even when defeat is certain. Through the neural interface, Marcus felt the ship's agreement. The Dreadnought Eternal had been waiting millions of years for a commander who could think beyond conventional military strategy. Someone who could adapt ancient technology in ways its creators never imagined. Synthesis Unit 7, Marcus said. Begin preparations for our first diplomatic mission. We're going to start with the Zephyrian Empire since they're closest to the entity's current position. Understood, Commander. However, I should warn you that the Zephyrians are traditionally reluctant to share military intelligence with other species. Marcus smiled, feeling more confident than he had since accepting command of the ship. Then it's a good thing we're not asking them to share intelligence. We're going to give them intelligence, along with the technology to act on it. When they see what the entity is really capable of, they'll be begging us for an alliance. As the Dreadnought Eternal began its journey towards Zephyrian space, Marcus stood alone on the bridge, watching the stars shift through hyperspace. Through the neural connection, he could feel the ship's vast consciousness surrounding his thoughts, sharing knowledge accumulated over millions of years. For the first time since accepting command, Marcus felt truly ready for what lay ahead. The entity approaching their galaxy was ancient and powerful, but it had never faced the combined determination of a human engineer and an ancient warship designed specifically to stop it. The universe's largest war vessel was finally in the right hands, and Marcus Chen was no longer speechless. He had found his voice, and he intended to use it to rally the galaxy's defenders for the most important battle in the history of sentient life. The real war was just beginning, but for the first time in millions of years, the galaxy had a fighting chance.